My base theme this season is a colour wheel, where there are 8 sections built entirely of individual colours. And as you could tell from the title and thumbnail, today we are building the blue section. I started off by gathering blocks that are blue, including obvious things like packed ice and lapis, but also some grey and brown shades that I think will fit in with the blue area, such as mud and clay. Now for those of you who haven't seen the red section, this is what it looks like. Every block in here is some kind of shade of red, obviously having different shades, some blocks that are darker and more desaturated, some that are very bright and saturated. That kind of mixture was very nice to have. We also made a little creature. I want all 8 of the colours on the colour wheel to have their own creature design as well. And one of the key things with this build is I wanted to use blocks in unusual ways. So we could have used the netherrack as the floor like it is in the nether, but I decided to use these warts. We do have mangrove wood, but I didn't want to just use these as the trunks of trees. So when we did build trees or mushrooms here, we actually used coral for the stem or trunk of the tree. And we even used glazed red terracotta for the top. Now, if we come over here, I've already been gathering a lot of supplies. We've got lots of ice, lapis, coral, clay and mud. And I'll set out the colour palette down here so you can get a good idea of what we can work with. So here's the colour palette that we're working with, or at least the main colour palette. We do have some blue dyed blocks that we can use. I think I'll try to avoid those unless necessary. Now, I do really like that we have these 2 blocks here, mud and clay, to give a bit of contrast to the other blue blocks. I still think these blocks have a somewhat blue hue. It's pushing the limit a little bit, but I think it's close enough for it to work, especially in context with the rest of the colours. I think this will look like a dark colour in this palette, and this will look like a faded colour, and I think that will work well. But I want to talk about some of my ideas before I start building, because we want to use these blocks in unusual ways. And mud is probably the most difficult one to figure out a use for. I think I'm going to use this as the floor. Now the problem is, mud is the floor in the mangrove biome. So we need to make sure that we're using this in a way that is very different to how it would be found in the mangrove biome. And I think we can do that by 1, taking inspiration from a different biome, and 2, mixing in some clay. So my thought here is we could have kind of layers a bit like this, where it will be more like a Badlands biome. So imagine this on a much bigger scale, where everything at this level will be clay, everything at these levels will be mud. We could even have some small hills up there as well. We didn't really do that much in the red section, but we have that as an option here. So I think that will be the general base. It makes sense to have the darkest block on the bottom. That's the main reason I want to use mud in that way. Now, mangrove roots are definitely brown, and brown kind of looks like it should belong in the orange section. But there's a couple of reasons I'm allowing this. First of all, it's not the most orangey brown, and there's lots of other orange blocks and brown blocks that will fit a bit more with the orange biome. And also the key reason is they can be waterlogged. So here, if you think from a distance, if we've got a few of these blocks, it will actually look quite blue. And the additional benefit here is we can attach coral to these. So I actually think this is going to form part of the creature in the blue section. Now, of course, we could just use water separately to this, but we could take the water out. We could have falling water. The problem with that is the water is always going to look like water. It's very difficult to make water look like something else. So one of my ideas for this is to maybe make some rock pools like you might find near the beach somewhere, but instead of it being made of rocks or, being mossy, we will use ice. So we will have icy rock pools with the water in, kind of like the rock pools that you would find in the lush biome, in the lush caves. where that is mostly clay with all of the greenery around. Instead, this will be ice with maybe some kind of structure that looks like the water is dripping down into the rock pools. I haven't fully thought about how that will work, but I think that will look nice as a bit of a contrast to the ground that it sits upon. And finally, we have lapis. This is a bit of a wild card. I have no real use of this yet. It does go very well with this coral, so maybe I will combine them together somehow, or maybe we have some like ice spikes inspired lapis structures or something like that. We could maybe tie it in to this icy thing. Maybe we have some other icy things that are more like flowers or plants or something like that. There's a lot we can play with. I do think I want to do some interesting shapes here, and the key reason for that is that we don't actually have any shaped blocks. You know, there's no stone that we can turn into walls and stairs. There's no blue wood. There's warped wood that Cyan will get to use, but there's no wood that we can use in the blue section. So other than the coral here, we're going to have to get really creative with how we use these blocks. But now I'm going to start laying down the mud floor so that we can get a feel for what that will be like. Now, I must admit, this is not looking very blue so far. This is definitely blue. This, we're pushing the limits a little bit, but I quite like how it looks so far. It's mostly a case of just getting these shapes in with these kind of Badlands style structures around here. I do think as I was doing this, I preferred the ones that were a bit taller and had a more interesting structure. Like this one to me is probably the most interesting one here. So I may come back. I tried a flat one here, but it just kind of, I don't know, seeing this much of the clay just looks a little bit odd to me. And this one just looks like an egg. I can't see anything other than that. So I may chop and change some of these and make them a little bit more interesting. But if we fly around, we can see that we have basically gone right to the edge here. So we're essentially ready to start building things out on these flat areas. So I want to try and build some icy rock pools here and come up with some idea for the structure in the centre. I also need to figure out the lighting because we don't want torches around, or at least we don't want these torches around. We might use sea lanterns hidden in the rock pools perhaps. And I think we can also use the blue soul lanterns because if we use shaders, let me just swap over. You can see these torches give off a very yellowy orange light. So if we have something like a soul lantern, that will have more of a blue effect. So here you can see how the lanterns give off this lovely blue light, which I think will suit this area. The only problem I have with this is it does look quite man-made. So I'm not sure how we're going to fit this in with the kind of icy structure. Maybe we could do like an ice tree with lantern fruit. I don't know, that feels like it's pushing it to me, but we might give it a go. We also have the torches, which do have this brown on that I'm not a big fan of. But again, you know, if we do just want to lay things out like this, we can put these on the side of blocks as well. So they're a little bit easier to tie into the things that we build, whereas the lanterns would have to dangle down or just be placed on top. And last, we have the sea lanterns. I do think I want to use these in the cyan section as the lighting there. Again, cyan gets all the best blocks. But maybe we can use them hidden, maybe covered in carpet or something like that, because these give out a much stronger light than these. But the blue light we get from these is slightly more interesting than the white light we get from these. So we'll see. Ultimately, the goal is to just stop any Enderman from spawning. so I'm happy with anything. But for now, we'll put these torches back, and I want to start building something out of ice here. So here we finally have something blue in the blue area, and I do really like how this, is a pop of colour amongst all of the grey. I love the rock pools. The only problem is the lighting is a bit too strong and is melting some of this ice here. So I did use sea lanterns in these middle areas. I might just try soul lanterns because I think they can be waterlogged. So they will be like some kind of watery plant like kelp or seagrass, except it's a lantern. So we have this blue ice centre all the way through the middle, kind of like a tree trunk. And then we have these packed ice kind of leaves or branches with the transparent ice dripping down. And I love this. I think this works really well. The final detail that I added was some lapis at the top. If I just fly around, you'll be able to see this is kind of like the top of a flower blossoming at the top. I'm glad I got to use the lapis, and I think this opens up a possibility for me to build some kind of little seedlings or saplings with the lapis all around. So we can use lapis and ice to build some smaller things to fit in the gaps around here. But for now, I want to build a very similar structure to this in all of these gaps. So there's going to be quite a few of these, similar to how over here we did the red mushrooms. So I'm going to work on that now, and we'll catch up in a bit. So now, as you can see here, we've filled out this whole area with that tree rock pool design, and honestly, I really like it. I tried to vary the height a little bit, which if I just fly up here, you see we've got a couple of lower ones here, we've got a really tall one there. But if we just land on here, I really like this design. I like that we've got a little bit of light from the lichen on here. I love the use of the lapis at the top with this kind of flower design, and I like that those are kind of different heights. That's the key thing, really. Because it mostly just looks like a kind of, it's just all ice around here, which fills out the kind of skyline nicely. But having that one detail at the very top to stand out from the rest, I think is a really nice touch. And what I also did is I planted some bulbs. So we can imagine that this here is going to grow up into one of these, and this is just a young version. But if we look back again, there's not much completely empty space here. We either have hills or we have these ice structures. And this area is definitely going to be a more minimalistic area compared to red, simply because we have so few choices of blocks to choose from. Hey, you shouldn't be able to spawn here. Back in the red section, we have this creature here. We have a few of these dotted around, and I want to start working on the creature for the blue area. And this is going to use most of the blocks that we have been avoiding so far. Hello, sir. And so I think we'll build one first here, right at the start of the area, because this is quite a blank spot, and we'll have it facing the water. So if we build these up here, these will be filled with water, which we can start doing. So you see, this to me is a blue block. I'm treating it as blue with a bit of brown, slightly twisting my own rules, but they are my rules, so I shall do whatever I please. And then instead of having just loose water on the inside, because we're dealing with coral, I think it would be easier to use these guys here as well. That way, if we accidentally break a block, we're not going to have the water spill out all over. And then we also want to have, I think for this one, we'll do 3 at the front here. There we go. So you'll start to see the shape of a creature here, but once we add the coral in, it will make a big difference. So to begin with, let's have coral all along the bottom here. And we will also have some come out on the sides. And we'll do the same on the other side. It's nice to have a symmetrical build. There's less to think about. And then we will cover all of this up. And we'll cover the back as well. So now it kind of has its own shell around the water that we placed inside. And finally, let's do a head on the front. We'll give it some eyes. Blackstone is a neutral block, so I don't mind using it there. And there we go. We have our own little creature here taking a drink from the rock pools. I did design a different version of this with an extended neck, a little bit giraffe-like, so I might actually say that that's what these creatures can do. They can extend this watery neck here all the way from inside the shell all the way out to be much taller. So that way it gives us an excuse to add a bit of variety to these. We can make all of the bodies the same size but change the head shape, and I think that will be interesting. We can imagine that there's maybe some fruit that grow on these trees. Maybe this ice here is something that contains nutrients, perhaps. So these guys can drink from the water below but then extend up and eat the fruit or the ice leaves, or however you want to think about this. I like to think about how things could make sense in like an alien world, but I'm not, the law does not have to be perfect. It's just a bit of fun. It just kind of helps with the creativity a little bit as well. But we can add a couple more details to this guy here. So let's add some fans here and maybe to the edge of the neck, and we can give him some hair. How does that look? I quite like it. I wonder if we should extend this over, or is that a bit much? I mean, we could even have one here. It does make it all look a little bit samey, so let's get rid of some of this. I like that on top of the, I guess those are his knees, like elephant knees at the front. I love his little hairdo. We can do candles, actually. We can do candles on the top here as kind of like a little spine. You see when you've got two candles together, how they're all kind of in line. And we could even do that on the head if we wanted. So I like that. I really do like that. Let's add two here as well on the little tail. Yeah, I think that works well. Adds a little bit of detail to the top. So there we go. We have one little creature. I think we can definitely build quite a few of these around here. Here he is from the front. He's quite a cute guy. I think I like him. So here we go. We've built quite a few of these guys all around. Slightly different neck poses. You see, we've got the tall guy up here. They do fill out the spaces quite nicely. And if I just fly around, you'll see how much the coral really pops. It pops more than the lapis and the water. It really stands out. I love them. I think they're really cute. And I built a lot more of them than I did the red creatures, partly because we had the space to build them. I also added some coral in here. I tried it against the side of the ice, but I didn't like how it looked. But, you know, it's just a little detail in the water. I think that's quite nice. Now, the last thing that I really want to address, well, it's two things. Firstly, sick of the torches. We need to get rid of the torches. And secondly, we do still have a lot of these kind of empty spaces, which is fine because I find this to be a bit more of a relaxed open space than the dense red area. You know, they don't all need to be dense in the same way, but I still think, you know, some of these spots, especially like back here, this is just nothing, you know, completely flat. It looks like it's waiting for something to be built. I could try and extend this over and have some more of the mesa style building, but what I was thinking is we could continue to use glow lichen as lighting. Now, glow lichen is not blue. I'm not going to try and fool you. But to me, it is... Maybe it's a little bit green, but I'm going to treat it as being grey. Right, I will find this to be a very grey block. It essentially becomes the colour of the block that it is stuck to. And we had quite a lot of lapis left over. So I'm wondering if we can do something a bit like this to look like a little plant that is shooting up. Right, this will provide some light. We will probably need quite a lot of these because they don't provide the same amount of light as a torch. But I think this is, you know, another little interesting detail that we could add every now and then. So I definitely think that is more interesting than having a torch. And again, I don't feel like it is particularly green. I was thinking of having soul lanterns around, but this, much like some of the other things we considered, feels like cyan more than blue, right? We tried sea lanterns and that had a similar problem, so lighting wise we don't really have much of a choice. And here we have the finished area. I'm quite pleased with this, to be honest. With so few blocks, I think we managed to create something quite interesting here. I think these little bulb flower things for the lighting works well. I'm still going to try and convince myself that glow lichen is blue and not green. Or at least grey. But I am very pleased with how this works. I haven't seen many Enderman spawn now. I did have to add some glow lichen to the bottom of these turtle giraffe necks. And that seems to have done the trick to stop the mobs from spawning. It's fun to explore. It still ended up being quite dense to walk through, partly because of the little bulbs that we've added in, but I think this is a great addition to the colour wheel. And if you're curious, this is what it looks like with shaders. So we don't have much blue light. The soul lanterns in the water kind of do the trick, which from the sides does give the ice a very nice glow here. The rest of the lights kind of just look white, and it doesn't look very lit at all, to be honest, especially the ice as it goes further up. So the fact that we have been able to spawn-proof this is quite impressive to me. Although there's areas like this where I'm thinking, is that spawn-proof? I'm not 100% sure. But as long as we're not getting many Endermen, I am pleased with this. Oh, I do see one over there. He obviously found a spot to spawn in. And here is the view from the front. I do like that we get this tall structure at the front, and then it kind of is a bit like a triangle shape as we see the other ones pop in behind. And I do like that we've got a couple of creatures that we can see at the front, because we didn't have that in the red section over here. The creatures are a bit more hidden. But yeah, These two places very much contrast each other, and I think once we start adding more colours to the colour wheel, this is going to look even better. Now, those who have watched episodes from this series before, you will know what time it is. It's time for the Colourlympics, the contest where 8 colours compete against each other, mostly within the farms that I have made. And because we've been building in the end, above my base, we've actually been loading 3 different farms, so those 3 farms will be the competitions for today's episode. We've got the current scores on the screen now. As you can see, Blue is currently in the lead. Will they keep the lead within their own episode? Well, let's find out. To begin with, we have the sugarcane contest, and Blue actually managed to secure the win. So they have now jumped even further into the lead on the scoreboard by getting that gold medal. Pink managed to get the silver, which actually puts them into the silver position overall, although we do have 3 colours tied for that position at the moment, with red and green as well. And purple managed bronze, but is still miles behind. Next up, we have the wool farm. And in this one, Blue still managed to get a trophy, a silver medal, although Cyan took gold in this one, with red getting bronze. And that's made quite a few changes to the leaderboard. So that bronze medal puts red solely in second place, bumping pink and green down to joint third. It's all very close in those positions. And the gold raises Cyan up into 5th, which drops yellow and orange down a position. But will they make up for it in the last event? And here is the best farm of all, the cactus farm. We had 2 tied positions in this one, so lots of points to give out. Both yellow and pink share the gold medal, and red and cyan share bronze. And as you'd imagine, this created quite a few changes. Pink is now solely in second place, bumping red down to 3rd, and cyan and green fall down a position because yellow's gold medal bumps them up into 4th. Even though they had a phenomenal performance early on, Blue is still only 3 points in the lead, ahead of pink, so it's very close. Red is only 2 points behind them, and then yellow is 1 point behind, green is 1 point behind that, and cyan is 1 point behind that. So it is incredibly close in the top 6. Orange and purple, though, are very much lagging behind. There's definitely still more to play for, though. I do actually want to make some more farms around here, probably next episode, because I will need some resources for the other colour wheels up above. So I'm thinking we'll maybe make a bamboo farm and perhaps a skulk farm as well. Or we might go out and do some adventuring to gather some blocks. So as always, in the Connections game, the goal is to find 4 groups of 4. Now, as a side note, if you do enjoy these puzzles, I am running 2 different puzzles every weekend on my Discord server, so feel free to come along and check that out. Now, here is last week's puzzle. It was a bit of a tricky one, so let's go through the different groups. To begin with, we have Wither Rose, Pufferfish, Cactus, and Fire, and these are all things that hurt to touch. Campfire was in there as well, so this was definitely a trickier puzzle. We then have Glass, Wool, Concrete, and Tropical Fish, and these are things that can come in all 16 colours. 3 of them are obvious. Tropical Fish is a bit of a more niche thing, but yes, Tropical Fish can come in all 16 colours, in both of their colorations as well. That's why there's so many different combinations. Now, you may notice a theme here with Pufferfish and Tropical Fish. My main goal when making this puzzle was to have 1 fish in each category. Obviously, if you don't know that when you're trying to solve it, it can make it a bit more difficult. But next up, we have salmon, water, gravel, and clay. And these are all things that can be found in rivers. It was very difficult for me to find things that separate salmon and cod. But finally, we have emerald, cod, campfire, and fishing rod, and these are all things that can be obtained from a fisherman. Now, I was a bit cheeky with this one because I was thinking of the bucket of cod, but I didn't want to write bucket of cod because then it ruins this sequence that we have here. My main hope with this was when people put in their first guess, they would just guess the 4 fish. So, a bit of a cheeky one, I'll admit that. But, good job to anyone who managed to solve this. And here is the puzzle for this episode. As always, you can find it in the description. So here are the clues. We have ice, nautilus, alley, wandering trader, blue glazed terracotta, phantom, turtle, brown, packed ice, blue, sniffer, shulker, squid, blue ice, water, and dragon. Good luck to everyone who tries to solve this. But now it's time to head over to the connections game. Now, thanks very much for watching. This was very fun to work on, and I'm glad we were able to make something interesting. Do let me know which colour you want me to do next. I don't have that planned out, so I'm open to your suggestions. But thanks very much for watching, and take care.